Hey folks, how y'all doing? It has been about a year and a half since I made a video. And the reason I quit making videos is because I pretty much give up on humanity. And I sure as hell gave up on my fellow patriots. And over the last 2 years, I've learned that I was actually the one living in a bubble, because it just seems as though I'm the minority when it comes to patriotism, or people like me, I guess I should say, is the minority when it comes to patriotism. Over the last 2 years, I was really shocked to find out that Marxist communism has really swept through this nation. And it just seems as though the current or the ongoing, what word should I use? Pandemic, plandemic, whatever you want to say, it was almost as if it was put in place to usher in all this Marxism and communism. And I started asking questions, I say 2 years ago, I guess I should say a year and a half ago. And I started asking questions a year and a half ago on a local level, and I never got any answers. And I'm still asking these very same questions today, and I'm still not getting any answers. And right after all this shit hit, and my state, Oklahoma, shut down. The state of Oklahoma shut down for an entire month. Everybody was to quarantine, everybody was to shelter in place. And the whole purpose of this month-long shutdown was to slow the spread, not to overwhelm local hospitals, not to overwhelm capacity, not to overwhelm medicine supplies. And the irony is I don't know about anywhere else, but here in Oklahoma, that influx of COVID patients never came. Hospitals, minor emergency clinics, doctor's office, they wound up laying off staff because the COVID patients never came. The influx of COVID patients never hit their doors. And of course, where we're in a lockdown and we were in a pandemic, they canceled a lot of elective stuff, which comes to find out was the bread and butter of their medical care. Screenings, breast cancer screenings, colon cancer screenings, hysterectomies, knee replacements, hip replacements, pacemakers, all that stuff, those services were suddenly not available to people. You couldn't go to the hospital and have something like that done. They had battened down the hatches, and the only thing they were interested in is COVID patients that never came. And so a year and a half ago, the questions I started asking, now I live outside of Tulsa. I live in Tulsa County. I do not live within Tulsa city limits. But because I work in Tulsa city limits and I live in Tulsa County, I reached out to Tulsa City Council members. And I had questions. I called them and I emailed them. And of course, nobody, even a year and a half later, nobody ever responded. They still do not respond. And I had questions like, if this virus is so lethal and so contagious, why hasn't the city of Tulsa put out biohazard receptacles to dispose of masks, used masks, because they're being thrown down everywhere? And if this virus was so lethal and if it was so contagious, why hasn't hospitals put out biohazard receptacles? If it is so lethal and so contagious, why isn't healthcare providers required to start their shifts and put on biohazard suits? And then at the end of their shift, go through decontamination and discard those biohazard suits, or whatever they do with them at the end of their shift. Maybe they sanitize them. I don't know. I also had questions like, if this virus was so lethal and so contagious, why aren't maintenance personnel and groundskeepers in biohazard suits as they go around picking up these used masks? Nobody ever answered those questions. And then I started noticing this trend that politicians were blocking medical doctors from writing certain prescriptions, virus prescriptions that had a long history of curing viruses. Politicians started blocking pharmacists from filling virus prescriptions. They didn't seem to be interested in doing anything they possibly could to stop the spread of this. They decided from the very beginning that there was only one protocol and one protocol only that could stop this. And that didn't make any sense to me. Why were politicians blocking doctors from treating patients on an individual level? If one prescription or one antidote would work on one patient, why was that doctor being stopped from doing that? And then I also noticed this trend where medical doctors, licensed practicing medical doctors, even frontline doctors, they would put out their own information and put out their own videos. And if it wasn't exactly what CNN said it was, should have been, then all these social media platforms were yanking down videos or information provided by actual licensed medical doctors. And then all these videos started popping out from traveling nurses that were saying, I don't know what's going on, but the COVID patients are not here. One of them in particular, I'll never forget, was a traveling nurse that went to New York City. And she said, I have no idea what's going on, but there's no COVID patients. They're not here. I'm being paid, I don't remember how many hundreds of dollars a day it was, to sit in a hotel room in New York City. Now, of course, today that same nurse should be fired from New York City for not taking the vaccine, but that's a whole different video. I made some notes here. If you're wondering what I'm looking down at, I'm looking at my notes because it's been a while since I made a video. I have a lot of shit I want to talk about. Oh, I also noticed that this computer geek named Bill Gates was allowed to travel around the country and give all the medical advice he wanted. Now, medical doctors couldn't give medical advice if it wasn't off CNN, but Bill Gates could give medical advice. And I watched this rise in very authoritarian people, everyday common citizens. They had decided they were scared to death of this and that you should be forced to live exactly the same way they did. If they didn't want to go outside, they didn't think you should be outside either. If they wanted to wear a mask, they thought that you should wear a mask everywhere you went. If they wanted to quarantine, they thought that you should quarantine as well. And that didn't make any sense to me because we all know these type of people. These are the type of people that they demand the autonomy to mitigate their own healthcare choices. They want to decide who their doctors are. They want to decide what days they go to the hospital or to the doctor. They want to decide what medicines they take. They want to decide what procedures they want to have done. Now, they have no problem picking their own healthcare choices, but they sure as hell don't want to afford you that same right. And I saw a rise in this. And now what I'm seeing is a rise of people honestly believing that if you choose not to get this vaccine, that you're asking to be drug off to a camp somewhere. You need to have your children taken from you. You need to be fired from your job. If you can't do whatever society dictates, whatever the flavor of society is of the day, if you can't get on board with their movement and their ideology, they want you disposed of in their American country. And I've never seen anything like this. It used to kind of frighten me a little bit. Now it pisses me off really bad. I've battled with these people for almost 2 years on social media. We all recognize them. These are the people that in the 40s, they would have turned in their neighbors as being a Jew. These are the people that in the 60s, they would have ostracized homosexuals. These are the people that in the 80s, they would have ostracized and shunned the AIDS people. We all know their type. And now here we are in a new century, and these are the people that want to shun you, ostracize you, and turn you in for not having a vaccine. They've been around forever. This is just the first time my generation has really had to encounter them. This may have been going on for a long time in other countries. This is a whole new phenomenon that I've experienced in my country. And I don't know what it is about Australia seems to be the testing ground or the trial run for a lot of the shit that's going down. But if y'all aren't paying attention to Australia, y'all really need to get on board. I'm going to start making videos again, mostly because I don't have anything else to do. Video journaling is very therapeutic to me. I get to say a lot of shit that I really don't have people around me to say it to. If you don't like it, man, don't watch my shit. That's all you got to do. Scroll off the channel. Report it if you want to, but I'm done with YouTube anyway. YouTube is well, their epitome of a communistic framework, and I got no use for that. I'm gonna start putting my stuff on Rumble. I'm gonna explore Odyssey, but there's a lot of them out there. There's like Frank Speech now. Diamond and Silk are putting their stuff on Frank Speech. There's also Vimeo, but from what I understand, Vimeo is kind of cultish too. So anyway, here I am. I'm back. I ain't going nowhere. I'm gonna start making my damn videos again. So I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.